All right, we're back. Episode 32 of the Field for the Game College Football Podcast. We're going to do a different kind of episode today. We're doing the same series that we've been doing on the transfer portal players and their rankings. But we're going to go and pick the best of the rest from all the final position groups that we haven't done so far. So we're going to do linebackers, offensive linemen, edge rushers, defensive line, so interior defensive line, nose tackles, defensive backs, that encompasses safeties and corners, and then tight ends. We've just picked our three favorite players that are the highest rated in those position groups. And we're not going to get super nitty gritty on it, just talking about the guys that we think are the highest rated and deserve to be where they're at. And we'll give our quick evaluations on it. And probably going to be a shorter video today.
Yeah, me personally, as far as some of these players go, I don't have the most ball knowledge. I'm kind of a casual when it comes to knowing a ton of specific players. So that's part of the reason why we're gonna do it this way for this one.
Yeah, especially like with defensive players and trenches players, like you're looking at guys that you don't really get to see a lot of highlights on. Unless you intentionally go watch offensive line play, you're not really going to know a lot about certain players. I mean, you've got guys like Jordan Seaton who everybody just kind of knows based off of their recruiting ranking coming out of high school and just generally the hype behind the player that nobody's really watched Jordan Seaton highlights. I haven't really watched Jordan Seaton highlights. I don't have time to watch offensive lineman highlights. And that's no disrespect. It's just it's not really something that you sit down and you can see immediate like, oh, that guy's the guy. You really just need to know, okay, how many sacks is he allowed? 0 sacks at left tackle? He's probably pretty good. And size matters a lot. So we'll talk about that with a couple of these guys and just give our quick reactions on where they're going, where they're coming from, and how we think they're going to fit in the scheme and maybe what they present as a specific player to the table. We'll start with linebackers. We've got Cade Ulave. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Ulave. Maybe butchering that, but he's heading from Cal to BYU. I kind of feel bad for Cal. They're losing two stud linebackers. One which we're not going to talk about. He didn't make our top three. Just Lucas Farelli going to Ole Miss from Cal. He had the whole Clemson debacle with Dabo Swinney and Pete Golding. So that probably would take up too much of our time talking about. But he heads from Cal to BYU, instant impact guy. He's probably going to be their leading tackler on the team. He's very good on the blitz. So, I mean, you've got somebody that can have 100 tackles, but also he could probably be a presence in the backfield for a couple TFLs and some sacks. I like the move. BYU's a defensive stronghold for guys like that. So, I think that's an upgrade for Cade moving to BYU, and BYU got a solid one there.
Yeah, I mean a good piece for a team that's gonna be pushing for a conference title again.
Yeah, BYU was really underrated last year, and heading into this year, I think the guys that they're probably wanting to upgrade the most is their receivers on the outside. I don't know that they really did well recruiting there, but they're hoping they can get guys there, and then interior on defense, having size and speed to be able to take on teams like Texas Tech is going to be huge. So I think this is a huge addition for BYU. Should be a good one for them, and probably will lead maybe even the Big 12 in tackles. He's one of the best linebackers in the country. Huge get for BYU. That's why he's at the top of our list. Next, we got Rasheem Biles heading from Pittsburgh to Texas. This is a big get, especially with Anthony Hill Jr. still being at Texas. Between the two of those guys, they're going to be really hard to stop. I mean, they probably have the two best linebackers in the whole country. I don't know that it's going to be very fun trying to throw over the middle or run up the middle on Texas this year. And I think Colin Simmons is coming back. I can't remember. Pretty sure he's either a junior or senior this year. So they've got him off the edge playing kind of an off the ball linebacker. And Rasheem Biles was an animal at Pitt. He was all over the field, causing mayhem everywhere. I think this is a great pickup. Probably, in my opinion, he might be the best. It's close between him and Cade, but he's definitely a good scheme fit for Texas with Anthony Hill being on the other side.
And they were definitely in need of some anchors on defense this offseason with how up and down they were last year at times.
Yeah, they were pretty spotty on defense last year. Like they had really good players in individual spots, but it just felt like there were a lot of holes there. Like in this Mississippi State game, they just got torn up. That was just
Yeah,
one
until it mattered.
instance until the end. But yeah, you can't be getting torn up by Mississippi State, if you're Texas and you're recruiting top five classes. So big get in the portal for Texas. I think this is an upgrade for Rasheem Miles heading to Texas from Pitt. Last linebacker we've got is Caleb Bacon. Love the name. He's heading from Iowa State to Penn State, obviously because of their head coach Matt Campbell moving over and pretty much half of the roster. He was an anchor for Iowa State for a couple years. He was really solid there. tackle machine. I think he's a plug and play guy. Really solid get for Penn State. I don't expect like 100 tackles because Penn State has really solid guys already, but they lost so much. So I think he's plug and play easy.
I mean, his last name is Bacon. Like that's just gonna be a dude that can get after it.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that Penn State got a good one there. They're basically just Iowa State meshed with a bunch of extra Penn State guys that didn't really get to play and a couple other transfers. So we'll see what Penn State looks like this year. I'm excited. I think the defense probably will still be really solid. They were always good at Iowa State, and Penn State universally has always had a good defense. So I expect Matt Campbell to hold things up over there in Happy Valley. So we're going to move on to O line then. Number one, we've got offensive guard Colton Price heading from Baylor to Kentucky. This is a big get for Kentucky because they're trying to reload their entire offense and defense this year. Will Stein comes in as the head coach from Ohio State as the OC over there. I think that Kentucky's done really well in the portal. So this is probably one of the anchor pieces for that. They got a bunch of running backs. They've got a new quarterback, and they've got several different wide receivers, and they look pretty solid across the board. I don't know that they've got any huge standout guys, but they filled in all the depth that they needed on offense at least. So I like this get. They had a couple other guys on the line, but Colton Price definitely stands out the most. He did a really good job protecting Sawyer Robertson last year for Baylor behind the rest of the offensive line being pretty poor. So he was one of the lone strongholds there.
Yeah, and speaking more about Kentucky, they also got the number 4 guy, the
Yeah,
number 4 guard as well.
yeah, he's not on
So
our list. What was his name?
Tegra Tashabola, if I pronounced that right.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But that getting two of the best guards in the portal really solidifies the center of your offensive line with a new quarterback and Kenny Minchie coming in. That's huge. So I think Kentucky's probably set up pretty solid. Definitely a steal from Baylor. Another upgrade possibly if Kentucky ends up being any good. Baylor's kind of going downhill right now. I don't really see them getting better. Unfortunately, they lost a lot of skill guys this
No.
year. But yeah, good get for Kentucky. I would say upgrade, but I'm not sure what they'll look like this year. So good get for Kentucky. We'll see how Colton Price feels about Kentucky later this season. Second, we've got Jordan Seaton. He's the number one tackle heading from Colorado to LSU. Already referenced a couple times. 5-star coming out of high school. Really good at Colorado. Solid on the tackle position. Keeping who they have starting last year? They had like two or three guys.
They went through like all their quarterbacks on the
They had
roster,
Julian
basically.
Lewis, they had Kane
Salter.
Salter, and then Ryan Staub. So they went through pretty much everybody. And he did a good job protecting on the outside for those guys, but another guy that just didn't play on a solid unit. So I think anchoring up a better unit at LSU where they have some talent coming in, he'll be able to kind of see his full potential. I saw a picture of him on the internet the other day, like post conditioning at LSU and then pre conditioning before he got to LSU. He looks completely different. Like he's not small, but like he's still leaned out a little bit.
Mhm.
And his height and size, he's going to be moving around and he's going to be throwing people. So that's a big get for LSU. Definitely an upgrade for Jordan Seaton getting out of Colorado. Probably went a good time. I don't feel terrible about them this year, but they weren't great last year. So not a bad time to get out of Colorado.
Yeah, I mean this upcoming year is gonna be make or break for Dion.
Yeah, I don't know if Danny Scudero will be enough to carry them this year. They're losing O'Marion Miller. That's a tough loss, but we'll see what they can do. I think that's definitely an upgrade for Jordan Seaton and LSU. So big move there. Lastly, we've got Carius Kern heading from LSU to Ole Miss. This is one of the other players we've seen transferring between LSU and Ole Miss this year. The rivalry is just kind of building up and culminating to September the 19th. And these players, they're swapping teams, makes it really interesting. When we had the series game this weekend with Ole Miss and LSU, Ole Miss got the W in the sweep, and there was fights breaking out, like crazy stuff's happening. So I think between all the players switching around and an off-season drama with Lane Kiffin, that that game in September is going to be crazy. This is a good get for Ole Miss with a pretty solid offensive line coming in next year. This was one of the key pieces they needed to fill in at tackle, and they got a guy that was almost a 5-star in the class last year. He played a little bit for LSU this past season. Not getting, I don't think, a full season of starting reps, but in his time, I think he did pretty solid. So really good pickup for Ole Miss, piecing together a pretty full offensive line heading into this year. So they look to have some nice depth and be able to rotate a couple guys. We'll move on to edge rushers. We've got number one, Prince Mamiellan, another Ole Miss player heading to LSU. Kind of a last second portal entry after the not the Sugar Bowl. What was the Fiesta Bowl when Ole Miss lost to Miami? It was a pretty quick turnaround. Ole Miss had a couple guys dip on over to LSU. So Prince Will heads to LSU. I think he's cousins with Princely Mamielon, who also played at Ole Miss, was really good. Got drafted by the Panthers. I followed him on TikTok the other day. He's got a funny account. I like the stuff that he posts. But sad to see him leave Ole Miss. He had like 8 or 9 sacks for us last year. Positionally, he's a little undersized, but I do like his speed. He's probably earned being the number 1 player in the portal at edge rusher, but he may be a little too undersized to be bullying tackles in the SEC. I think with Ole Miss's scheme, we were able to get him in a lot of speed rush situations that were able to allow for some extra sacks. And we also did a lot of 3-man rushes. So, I mean, you got the whole right side of the offensive line to yourself, speed rush and get around the edge. You can get a couple sacks if the quarterback breaks contained. So, I felt like that's where he got a lot of this production from, but that may just be a little bit bias incorporated there. He's good, so that's a great get for LSU. I wouldn't necessarily call it an upgrade, but LSU definitely got a good player.
I just want to see if this time around LSU can take all these great pieces they're getting together and actually have a good team.
Well, you've got the number 1 tackle, the number 1 quarterback, and the number 1 edge rusher. Those are three. That's if you were doing a draft as an NFL team and you had a really bad team. Those are the 3 positions you need to target, other than maybe receiver and running back. You target edge, you target tackle, and you target quarterback. Left tackle specifically, and it looks like LSU's pretty much done that. They got their guy with Sam Levitt. He very much resembles the kind of athlete that Matt Corral, Jackson Dart, and Trinidad Chambliss were at Ole Miss. So I fully expect him to fit the mold for the offense. I just don't know if he'll be as consistent as people expect him to be. Definitely needs Jordan Seaton to be an elite tackle for him. So we'll go ahead and move on to Chaz Coleman at number 2. He's heading from Penn State to Tennessee. He's already gotten hype as one of the best edge rushers in college football. Signed a crazy NIL deal with Tennessee. He's making a lot of money, and Tennessee hopes for him to be probably one of the best rushers in college football. I know he had a bunch of sacks last year. He was very disruptive. I don't know if he was battling with injuries or not. From what I remember, I think he had a couple. But if he stays healthy, he probably will be one of the best edge rushers in the SEC. I expect him to be top of the leaderboard in tackles for loss or sacks at some point towards the end of the season. Definitely one of the better players in the portal. I think this is a great get for Tennessee. I wouldn't necessarily call it an upgrade either from jumping from Penn State to Tennessee, but I'd say Tennessee definitely got a win here, pulling Chaz Coleman out.
There's been a lot of good linebackers recently come back out of Penn State. I mean, Michael Parsons, Abdul Carter, and now Chaz Coleman, even though he's leaving there, but
Yeah,
they produce.
they've been a factory as of late, so seems to be a proven commodity here. I would be happy with this as a Tennessee fan for sure. Move on to Damon Wilson. This is a really good pickup for Miami. He's heading from Missouri. He actually was at a different school the year before last. He was at Georgia. Then he goes to Missouri, has a great season at Missouri, dips over to Miami for a bigger contract. Miami's looking to replace Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor with one of the best players in the transfer portal. So I think this is a great get. You're not going to be able to match the production of Ruben Bain, but Damon Wilson's definitely, and he may be Damon Wilson. Don't really know. My bad. But he may be one of the best players in the whole portal. As far as production is concerned, he's already proven that he can get there. So Miami looks to be one of the best teams in college football. I think he's going to be a key piece of their run if they have another one this year. Got to get some serious pass rushing out of him with the guys that they're losing on the outside.
That's another team too that I'm just really excited to see.
Yeah, it feels different than last year with Miami. Last year was kind of like they could be good, and they came on super late and surged after the weird start at the beginning of the year where we thought they were really good. Then they went down, and then they were really good, and then we're surprised they made the run into the playoffs as far as they did. And this year just feels like straight up they're just good.
Yeah.
Just there's no doubt if they flop, they've sold one of the best rosters they've ever had. So definitely one of the best teams in college football as far as roster looks so far. Move on to the defensive line. We've got number 1 James Smith heading from Alabama to Ohio State. Interior defensive line is really important in the SEC. So Alabama's been heavily loading at that position for years. And James Smith was one of those guys I think they expected to stick. Didn't really, I guess, stick very well at Alabama. Had some good production, but looking for greener pastures over at Ohio State. I know Ohio State's been producing a lot of good interior and exterior defensive line talent as of late. So I think this would be a great place for him to develop with the trends of the teams. Little bit of an upgrade for James Smith. I wouldn't say it's a big jump, but Ohio State gets a solid piece there for depth and rotational purposes. I think he sees a good amount of playing time and could produce well over there. Definitely got some good size. I like the player. I know that Ryan Day is looking to have a unit that's got serious depth. When you're at Ohio State, you've got a bunch of 5 and 4 stars competing for time, but at the end of the day, getting a bunch of guys up there that you know can play, you don't have to play those guys for 90 snaps a game on defense. Teams like Ole Miss have always had to do that with their best players. So I know Ryan Day is loading up on defensive line. Second, we've got Tyone Gray from Oregon heading to Notre Dame. He's making one of two defensive linemen on here that we're going to talk about. The next one, also from Oregon. And I think that Oregon had a mass exodus in the portal of defensive linemen and defensive ends. I know Ole Miss got one of their defensive ends, like Blake Purchase maybe. But Oregon's been producing a lot of guys on the interior and exterior defensive line for years. Nobody like really high profile, but they just have funneled a bunch of good players. So I don't know a lot about Tyone Gray or Terrence Green, but I highly expect both of them to be productive at their own position next year, heading to Notre Dame and Alabama. I know that Oregon's been a factory, so I don't necessarily think they're going to be huge impact players, but I think they'll be solid depth pieces that produce on a medium to high level next year.
They're both two of the biggest guys I'm seeing here. Green is 6'5", 330, and Gray is 6'6", 336.
Yeah, having that kind of size on the defensive line is really important, and Oregon recruited that way, and it's unfortunate they didn't keep those guys. You have that kind of size as depth, rotationally on defensive line. That's hard to stop. You send one guy out there who's 6'6", 330. You pull him off the field, and then the center sees another guy that comes out there the same size. He's like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like I just can't catch a break. Where's the 6 foot nose tackle? That's what I'm ready for. You're not getting that with these guys. They're great. Terrence Green heading to Bama, like I said, I think he's going to be solid. He's got had some good production at Oregon. So both of those guys leaving Oregon, that sucks for Oregon. But with the moving at different coordinator positions, that's not a surprise to me. So they're looking to rewrite the ship this year with losing late in the season in some key parts, trying to make a run in the playoffs. It hasn't really worked out for them as of late, so they're looking to reload. And losing these guys doesn't really help. Move on to defensive backs. This is one of my favorite players in the entire portal. We'll start off with safety Coy Perch heading from Minnesota to Oregon. He's kind of a gadget player. He's probably not going to play on offense at Oregon, but he does return kicks. Had a couple kick return touchdowns, several interceptions, lots of tackles, TFLs. He's a great player. All around, really solid. Oregon loses Dylan Theineman this year heading to the draft. Really, really good player. So they look to have an instant replacement for him who could possibly even be better. I know Minnesota is rolling in their graves right now because they're losing this guy, but he just got it back from Oregon to go over there. So I'm not surprised that they would pull it. But very, very, very big pickup for Oregon. Probably one of the best players.
I would have never thought the number one safety in the portal would be a white dude from Minnesota.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I remember at the beginning of last year, he was getting on a buzz in fall camp. He'd already been good, but everybody was glazing him. And I got to watch him this year, and he was good. So I can confirm the glaze is warranted. Boyd Perth is probably going to be one of the best players in the Big Ten next year. Definitely keep an eye on him come draft season next year, which we're rolling up on draft season here pretty soon. So we'll probably do like a special episode breaking down the draft, maybe. That could be one of our next ones. It'd be fun. I love talking about the draft. Move on. Number two, Jalen Crawford heading from Auburn to Ole Miss. I actually have gotten to watch a little bit of Jalen Crawford's film, obviously because he's heading to Ole Miss. It's something that I've tuned into. He is sticky and like he's all over these receivers. Like it's like I forgot what the nickname they give to DBs. They don't commit pass interference, but they're just seem to be always all over receivers. Where they should be getting flags thrown on them, but they don't. There's some nickname out there in the DB world for that, but this guy is one of those guys. Like you would think with how all over these receivers he is, there would be penalty flags flying. He just doesn't get lost. He doesn't get shook. He's not a super high production guy in terms of like interceptions and passes defended, but nobody wants to throw it anywhere near him. They won't test this guy. So lockdown corner, I think this is a great pickup for Ole Miss. Very big improvement there in their position room. They had a couple guys dip out of there after the playoffs. Not a great room for Ole Miss last year. They had a couple guys that were okay that are returning, but overall, very up and down play from Ole Miss DBs. One of the weak spots on the football team. So I think that Jalen Crawford is one of the best pickups Ole Miss got this year. Auburn loses a really big piece on their defense as they try to reload with Alex Golish and half of the USF roster moving over.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how this Ole Miss defense looks now with a lot of these guys they're getting, and then having a defensive-minded head coach now.
Yeah, I think that changes things for sure. We talked about this towards the end of the season. The way that Ole Miss will play football moving forward is going to be slightly different because you got a guy in Lane Kiffin that was all about risk management, and trying to find out the right opportune times to go for it on fourth down or to not kick the field goal and go for it or kick the whatever. He's always looking for the best way to leverage his risk. Pete Golding is going to rely on his defense more. And I think that that's why the team got behind him a lot. The defense never really played like hair on fire for Lane Kiffin, in my opinion. We had like one team in 2024 that the defense was just loaded with talent, but he was playing hair on fire for him. It just never felt like that because they never trusted them, or he never trusted them as a unit. I don't like that. I really don't. I think it's great to be aggressive, but you got to trust your defense if you got talent. If you suck on defense and your team knows it, you're just kind of dead in the water there and you do what you can do. But if your defense has been putting up good stats, like trust the guys. If it's fourth down and two, like you don't have to go for it every time. Kick the field goal. You know, you don't have to make your defense feel like every time they go on the field they're gonna get scored on. So anyway, that was a little bit of a rant there, but Jalen Crawford, great pickup. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a huge upgrade for moving teams for Jalen Crawford, but with Auburn having all the changeover, it's good to go ahead and get a fresh start at a team with a proven roster, solid coaching, and lots of wins recently. So big pickup for all this. Our last defensive back, we're going to talk about Ricky Gibson III, heading from Tennessee over to Texas A&M. I heard a lot of buzz from this guy last offseason, and I think he had a pretty good year with Tennessee. Saw some film from him at camp with Texas A&M already this spring. He made some play, and Texas A&M clipped it out. He looks really solid. He's got good hands, good at playing the ball. I don't know if he's necessarily a lockdown corner, but he's really quick. So I expect him to be a solid option for Texas A&M. Definitely probably going to make the starting lineup. Really good get here. I don't know enough about him to say that he's probably a top defensive back in the portal, but compared to the other guys, I felt good about him being in our top three, and Texas A&M gave him a back. So I think they feel pretty good about him. So that rounds out our defensive back top three. We'll move on to tight ends. This was a light list for tight ends. I wasn't really impressed with this one, to be honest with you. A lot of blocking tight ends, not really a lot of pass catchers in here. These are the only guys that stood out to me. If we had to do one episode on tight ends, it would have been a 5-minute episode. So we'll go ahead and get into it. Number one is Ben Brahmer, heading from Iowa State to Penn State. You're starting to see a little bit of a repetitive cycle here with the Iowa State players moving over to Penn State. It's basically the same team, same players. But Ben Brahmer, big guy. Very utilized in the passing game as far as like check releases off the line. Mainly a blocking tight end, but when it's time to do play action and check releases, he was really solid at that. Not shifty, not fast, but solid hands, good blocker, good size. Typical Penn State tight end, just not the Tyler Warren type.
6'7",
Yeah, that's a
big
big
dude.
guy. Definitely fits the mold for Penn State. Iowa State's going to miss him a lot. I expect for him to crack the starting rotation over there because Penn State lost a guy in Luke Reynolds who's heading to Virginia Tech. He's number 2 on our list. So Ben Brommer will be replacing him. Luke Reynolds is a little bit more valuable in the passing game, in my opinion. Definitely totaling a little bit better statistical output at Penn State. He looks to try to do that at Virginia Tech. He's following his coach, James Franklin, over to the Hokies and his quarterback, Ethan Grunkemeyer. Already having that connection in place is going to be big for Luke Reynolds. So I see this as an upgrade for him in terms of what he can do with his career. He's going to be a featured part of the passing game over there, looking to revamp things after they lost. Who's the guy they had last year? Virginia Tech's quarterback. It was so bad.
Kyron Drones.
Kyron Drones was abysmal. I hate to dog on him because he's a really good athlete, but as a quarterback, he wasn't great statistically, not efficient. They just ran the ball all the time, and they were one dimensional. So they're probably going to be leaning a little more heavy on the pass this year with James Franklin coming in. Luke Reynolds going to be a key part of that. Solid blocker, solid size. I expect him to get some pretty solid targets this year with the Hokies. Our last guy at tight end is Walker Lyons. He's heading from USC to BYU. He actually had a pretty good year last year, from what I remember. I think I got to watch a little bit of his highlights during the year last year. Big guy on the outside. He's kind of like a big, slow receiver. I mean, he's been productive at times in the passing game. I expect him to be solid for BYU. I think he's moving over there because his brother committed to BYU as a quarterback. I don't know when he's expected to get on campus. I heard he was doing something with missions or something, whatever. It was Ryder Lyons. He was like a 4 or 5 star quarterback from this past year's class, declared early, but he's got to go do missions for a year or two. I don't know exactly what the status of that is, but I think that's why Walker's heading over there. So good get for BYU. They don't really utilize the tight end very well, in my opinion. So I don't know what kind of impact this is going to have for his career. I just know that he's been solid for USC. Definitely more of a loss for USC than a huge gain for BYU because I just don't think they're going to utilize him well. That rounds out our tight ends. I mean,
There was only 9 guys that were 4-star tight ends, 0 5 stars.
yeah, we really tried to find guys that stood out to us at tight end, but the guys that we remember from last year didn't transfer. A lot of the guys either went to the draft or they stayed on their respective teams in that position. So I wasn't really impressed with the tight end draft class. I doubt there was much money spent at that position this year. But that rounds out our entire best of the rest list. We just wanted to do a speed run with this because we really didn't do much of a deep dive into statistics and film on these guys. When you work a 7 to 5 job and a 9 to 5 job and you got other stuff going on, it's hard to do film deep dives. So we try to when we can, especially with guys we already know. So with these skill positions, it's a lot easier because we've already seen them play. Going and watching defensive tackle film and offensive line film and DB film, you gotta go searching pretty deep for that kind of stuff. I'm no Cole Kubelik, so I don't really do all that. I'd love to get more time so I could do film deep dives because I do know ball to a certain extent. I'm no coach, but I'd like to have more time to do that. We're just not there yet, I don't think. So this is just our rough overview of the guys that we like and who we think is going to make an impact next year at these positions. And that'll end our transfer portal breakdown. We'll probably revisit some of these players as we start doing our predictions for next year. I'd like to do kind of like a full season prediction for every team. We won't get super detailed into it because we tried to do that last year. It's one of our first episodes. We kind of realized it was just going to be too much to break down the games that really we are not even going to know what's going to happen until the season starts. So getting into much detail there is just not really worth the time. But that's one of my favorite parts of the year is off season, picking teams and kind of guesstimating where we think things are going to land, and then it all just blowing up when the season starts.
Blowing up in week 1, half of it.
Well, that's what makes it fun. So, like when you get to the season and you're expecting teams that were 3-9 last year to be 3-9 again, and then all of a sudden they pull a Houston or a Tulane in the past couple of years when they've got a coach like Willie Fritz coming in and they shoot up to 10 wins, they don't see it coming. So, like teams like Oklahoma State this year are going to be like that. I would have to think people aren't going to see that coming, and it'll be week 3 and they're 3-0 and their quarterback's got 1,000 yards already, and everyone's like, dude, I thought they were terrible. Or you just didn't check the transfer portal rankings to see who they got. So that's how college football is now. I had fun with this segment that we've been doing. It'll be fun to switch it up too, but definitely cool doing a little speed run here. We'll have to keep some of these guys in mind, especially the edge rushers and the linebackers. I think they'll make the biggest impact on this list. So that'll do it. Quick episode 32 for us. We'll be back next week with most likely some different content, less transfer portal. So see you.